everybody. I am Allie Bloyd. I'm so excited to be here today. So this is a much different presentation than I normally give. Typically, I am giving speaks and talks on Facebook and Instagram ads, marketing for local businesses, but this topic is something that just kind of came out of the blue when I was interviewing Jessica for my podcast. She thought that this was something that was really necessary, and it's something I have a big passion for, and I think that it's really, really important, especially today, to be able to tie our values and what we care most about into our business. So this is the Unfiltered Business, how to make a big impact as a small business. This is really something that I know can increase sales for a lot of your businesses, but unfortunately, most people are too nervous or too scared to actually use value-based selling techniques in a way that not only doesn't hurt their business, but actually grows their business. Like you heard from my introduction, I am a marketer. I work with local businesses. That is really who I am professionally. I also am a speaker, I'm an educator and a coach, and those are the things that typically most of us are going to talk about when we are introducing ourselves or our businesses. But that is not all of who I am. There is so much more to that, and those are the things that I really try and work into my content and my messaging. So I have a 4-year-old daughter. I'm gonna be homeschooling her next year. Me and my husband just bought a 61-acre farm that we're gonna be turning into a self-sustaining homestead. We're gonna have an animal rescue. Those are things that I'm really passionate about. I also am a poet. I recently published a poetry book that is talking all about our great country and the things that I care about and family and my faith. I am a Christian and I am not afraid to talk about that. I don't worry that the things that I am, that I have to, really be hands-off with some of those things in my messaging. And the truth is, I don't need everyone to be like me. I don't need everyone to agree with me, but there are people that will go out of their way to work with you because their values align with theirs. So we are very much multi-dimensional people. And I think that when you can show those aspects of who you are as a business owner to your audience, they're gonna feel so much more connected to you. So I think we've all heard the phrase, people buy from those they know, like, and trust. But the problem is, do people know you? Do they really know who you are? And if they don't, how do you expect them to like you or trust you? Let me see a show of hands. So have any of you gone out of your way to work or buy from a business that you felt like their values were aligned with your own? So a large percentage of the room. Okay, now on the flip side of that, have any of you not bought from a business because you felt like their values were out of alignment from your own? So a little less, but still a pretty significant portion of the room. Those are critical things for you to think about. So today, based on recent reports, 71% of consumers as a whole say that they buy from businesses who are aligned with their values. Sorry about some of the graphics. We switched it out this morning, so it looks a little weird, but hopefully you guys can see that 83% of millennials say that they buy based on value alignment. 51% of Gen Xers and about 21% of baby boomers. 89% of US consumers report that they are more loyal to brands who have shared value alignment. Those are really, really powerful numbers. Every single business is in the business of selling. It doesn't matter what you do. Without sales, you do not have a business. And so if you can really leverage values-based selling, you will not only attract a new group of customers, you will also increase the brand loyalty with those who already work with you, and the numbers show that. So you really need to ask yourself, am I willing to kind of sometimes step out on a ledge, it feels like, and talk about things that maybe I'm hesitant to talk about or uncertain that my audience will want to hear. And I think these numbers really should encourage you that this is what you should be doing. Ultimately, I feel just a desire to talk about the things that matter to me. I believe that entrepreneurs as a whole have the power to change the world. We are the go-getters in life. We are the doers. We are the ideas people. And we can't sit on the sidelines and act like business is the only thing we should care about. I think all of us know that is only a small part of who we truly are. So we have influence in our community, but really in the world as a whole. And the question is, are you using that influence to make a positive impact on this world? And I can't tell you how many messages I get from other entrepreneurs thanking me for a lot of the things that I talk about, but also saying, we've made a very conscious choice not to talk about things like that. And while I do absolutely understand the fear and the hesitancy that comes along with that, I also feel like, again, we as entrepreneurs, if we care about something, we are people who do have a platform, however large that may be. And this is a great way to make that positive impact. So I'm sure most of you guys aren't aware of this, but social media is not always a nice place. There's a lot of bickering and arguing and people always looking for something negative to say. And that is the downside of social media, unfortunately. But there are strategies that you guys can use that will really reduce those types of interactions. You'll never be able to get rid of them because literally people will try and argue with anything. And I think that's okay. But the truth is, if you're not using values-based messaging, you're probably finding people that argue with you regardless. So does it really matter at the end of the day? People are scared of alienating their audience. They don't want to put too much of themselves into their business, and ultimately, it doesn't let their audience really even know who they are. They also aren't necessarily sure what to talk about. They don't want to push and go against the grain, and maybe they don't even know how to communicate the things that they want to say in a way that would properly represent their business or their brand. So these are 6 ways that you can implement this. I'm gonna move past this slide pretty quickly because kind of hard to read, but the first one starts with knowing your audience. So for me, local businesses, they are my audience. I also now work with marketers who also serve local businesses, but I know my audience. I know the things they care about. I know the things that they support. I know the things that they're against. They're very much in alignment with how I feel on many issues. Does that mean everybody feels the same way? Absolutely not. But I do know where my audience stands on specific issues. That makes it a lot easier for me to confidently talk about those things because I do know where they stand the majority of the time. So if you don't know where your audience is on certain issues, you should find out. You can do that very, very easily by taking polls on social media stories. You can ask questions. Asking questions is literally one of the best strategies for communication in general. But this is the place to ask. You have access to your audience right in front of you in real time. Ask them to tell you so you have a good idea of maybe some things you should stay away from and some things that you can confidently discuss. The second part of this is really knowing where you personally stand. I think that people can smell insincerity from a mile away. And this is not something that you want to do to jump on the bandwagon. You don't want to take up the latest hot button issue and just start talking about it just because. This is more of a way of life for your business as opposed to something that is just hopping onto the latest communication or conversation trends on social media. I also think people are a lot more confident to speak about what they believe in when they are clear and they have done research to back up their own conclusions. Too many of us, we are in this world where we read a headline and we think that's research. That's not research, and you will never be able to confidently discuss things in a positive and beneficial way if you don't actually know the reasons that you feel the way that you do. And with that being said, not every single issue that you care about is going to be appropriate for you to talk about. And it's not that you couldn't if you wanted to, but truthfully, you should want to put out content that is engaging to your audience. And there are going to be certain topics that you can very seamlessly tie into your business. So for instance, local business owners is who I serve. A lot of bricks and mortar business owners. Lockdowns were a very big hot button issue and still continue to be to this day. I have never been supportive of that, and I know that my audience isn't either, because this is their livelihood. If their doors are closed and they can't make money for their families, what are they going to do? So that's something that I can very easily talk about, but still have it tie into my audience and my business, because that's the people that we help. Those are the people that I've dedicated most of my life to supporting. And so there are going to be these intersections of things that you care about on a personal basis and things that you can tie into your business content. So our last speaker did a great job of talking about storytelling. And there is a saying that goes, facts tell, but stories sell. And that is the truth. People are not necessarily always open to facts and data. Sometimes they really want to have an emotional connection or viewpoint to go along with it. And truth be told, telling stories to communicate your points is one of the most effective ways to do it, because it does elicit an emotional response and it gets people to think about things in a much different way than they're used to. So when it comes to actually finding your voice and feeling like you can do this confidently without worrying about what people may say or if you're going to get backlash, I think there's a couple of things that you can do to make it easier. So the first would be, consider the medium that you would like to pursue this with. And maybe it could be everything you're already doing, but for some people, maybe they're more comfortable on video. They feel like a longer format can really help them get their thoughts out. I think that that's a really, really effective way of going about this, because if you're putting more of yourself and your thoughts and your opinions into video, it's harder for people to misinterpret what it is that you're actually saying. Podcasts can be another great one, because sometimes you might be nervous doing this for the first time, and it's easier when it's just your voice. And then for some, the written word is going to be most effective. So for me personally, I've been writing poetry since I was about 5 years old. Don't really know why I started writing it, but I have continued to do it my entire life. It's something that is very natural for me to get my thoughts and my feelings and help me make sense of the world. So my poetry format was actually one of the first ways that I actually went about this. This is something that I was writing about simply because it was on my mind, and putting that out there into the world in a format that was natural for me allowed me to do that a lot more confidently. Also ties into leaning into your natural style of communication. So our last speaker was talking about interviews. Interviews can be a great way to do this as well. Find somebody that you want to interview that's been impacted by certain things and allow them to share their story. I also think it's really important to always go about this with a spirit of kindness, never trying to engage with people in a hateful, negative, destructive way. There is so much of that out there online and just in the world in general, but you don't have to go down that road. There are always ways to be polite and be kind and disagree with people without turning it into something that's angry or ugly. And if you don't feel like you can do that, if you already notice through your own communications online that you tend to go down that path, then this probably isn't the best next step for you to take. I would say that's a great place to start. I think that for all of us, communicating effectively is easier said than done. And so what are some of the things that you can do to clearly communicate the message that you're trying to get across? Again, to hopefully have it not be misconstrued from what you're actually trying to say. So one thing I'd encourage you to do is just keep the message really focused. Saying less is often the best path. And if you can keep something very short and succinct, again, it's a lot harder for someone to misinterpret that. It's also a lot harder for people to kind of pick and choose which sentence or comment they want to argue with, because you're only saying what truly needs to be said. I also think that it's important to try and present information in a way that isn't necessarily forcing your opinion on someone. So again, like I mentioned before, I know who I am and what I believe in. I work with people of all backgrounds, all ideologies. I would never not want to work with somebody because they didn't agree with me. However, I do believe a lot of the time that people simply don't have access to the right information. And so instead of trying to push my opinion on someone, I take the path of, leading a horse to water. So the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You can present the information in a way that lets someone draw their own conclusions. And there are a lot of studies that show that people are more open to different ideas when they arrive at those ideas on their own. And so trying to present things without ending it with your statement or just putting it out there as an opinion, more of an informative piece, that can be really, really powerful. I also think it's important to understand the counterpoints or arguments for whatever you're talking about because, again, social media is a dynamic, real-time platform, and you will get people that disagree with you, and that's okay. You can still have really productive conversations with those people, but you do need to understand where they're coming from first, or you're not going to be able to do that. I also think it's really wise to consider taking a different angle on certain things, and those angles really depend on what it is you're talking about, but approaching it from a personal experience or something that sticks out to you that maybe not everybody else is going to notice. Those can be more enlightening than anything else. So this is an example of a post that I want to talk about, and I've got several examples to follow that talk about the real tactical ways you can go about this. So I always feel like statistics are incredibly powerful, but weaving it into a storytelling format. I end this, and you can't see the whole screen, but I end this with a question, not an opinion, not a statement. I simply am collecting facts and tying them together and connecting the dots for someone. A picture is also worth 1,000 words. So the photos and the imagery that you choose can often have more of an impact than the words you're actually using, but they can also really reinforce what it is you're saying. There is a concept of polarity, and I was first introduced to this concept through Russell Brunson in one of his books. And he always talked about being this polarizing figure and how that can help your marketing. And I remember having a conversation with my mom and saying, I don't think I am polarizing. I don't want to be polarizing to be polarizing. That's very inauthentic, and that's not ever anything that I wanted to do. But as time went on, I realized that just who I am and the fact that I am willing to speak up about things that I do care about somehow in today's world has made it polarizing. So you may not see those things about yourself yet. I know I didn't, but being polarizing to your audience can be a very big positive. There are also many, many studies showing that people don't want somebody who is lukewarm or walking that middle ground. They want to know where someone stands on things, and then they feel like, hey, this person, even if I disagree with them potentially, they're honest. They're not afraid to be who they are. And this also reminds me of a story from Mark Schaefer's book, Marketing Rebellion, where they asked some friends of theirs who were buying this higher-end handmade soap, which was several times more expensive than the typical soap. He asked them why they cared so much about that brand. And they said, I don't know if I love the brand, but I love the hands that made it. That is a powerful sentiment. People care about the person behind the business. So if you're removing yourself and your personal thoughts and feelings and the things that you care about from your business, they're never going to be able to feel that way about you. So here are a few more tips, tying things into your business that may not even be directly relevant. So I did a letter writing campaign, and instead of talking about here's who I'm writing to and here's what I'm saying. I made it about marketing and an open rate, and I tied it into what I do on a daily basis. Again, imagery, using imagery can be really powerful. Also, keeping things really short and sweet and making sure that it is relevant to the audience that you're serving. Again, short, sweet, to the point. I also think that you can leverage timely news and do it in a unique way. So one of those videos on there is actually the day after January 6th, which we all know is an incredibly polarizing event. But I'm not talking about the event. I'm talking about the state of human beings in our country and giving really specific examples of things that people can do to more unite themselves and stop being so divided. I can't tell you how much positive feedback I got from people from that video saying, I like you so much more now. I didn't really know you before. I like you so much more when I hear what you had to say. And again, I'm not talking about the specific events. I'm using events as a catalyst to talk about other things that matter to me. I also, again, write poetry. There was some stuff that came up recently about Dr. Seuss, tied in perfectly to a poem I'd already written, but that was a totally different angle than the way anyone else was discussing that issue. I also pay a lot of attention to world news, and one thing a lot of people didn't know about was something called the World Economic Forum. So I'm able to introduce this content through video, but also tie it back to my local business audience. We talked about local credit unions as opposed to big corporate national banks. That is what my audience cares about. So there are always ways that you can do this, such as simply using holidays or national days that come up to spread your message. I also think that it's really helpful to shift the messaging from yourself to supporting others a lot of the time. So it's the same concept as, let me interview someone and they're gonna share that content with their audience. It's more about them than about you. So highlighting other people that are doing things or that you're meeting without really making it about all the specifics can be a positive way to just show your audience what you value. So my book is a book of poetry. Again, never thought that this was anything that could be polarizing when I wrote it. I didn't write it to publish. I wrote it because that's what I do. But I decided at some point that I just didn't care if people didn't like it. I thought they were gonna love it because truthfully, if you read it, it's not anything that people would not be able to relate to. It is drawing your own conclusions. It's an art form, but it shows very clearly how I feel about certain things and what I value in life and what I find important. And before I published this, I had to ask myself, if this dramatically hurts your business, are you gonna be okay with that? And I was okay with that because I feel like sometimes it's more important to do the thing that you feel called or compelled to do than worrying about people who may not like it or may not agree with it. However, it's had the complete opposite effect. I have had a tremendous growth in my business, and I don't know that that's directly the reason, but I do think that people, they connect with me on a different level, knowing how I feel, and having the confidence to being able to share that gives other people the confidence to do that as well. But I've had client after client after client in recent months tell me that that is one reason they absolutely wanted to work with me. I'm sure for everyone who's done that, there are some that don't want to work with me because of that. But again, I don't need to be for everybody. I've never been for everybody. I serve a really specific audience, and I'm sure you guys do too. So as long as you're able to connect with your audience on the things that matter to you and them, you are going to see a much different picture than what you imagine it could look like. I get asked all the time, is this something that you feel like there has been this negative impact, even though it's been positive for my business? And truth be told, it hasn't. I've had virtually zero negative comments about it. Maybe people don't say it, but that's okay too. However, I've had a lot more public support for the things that I'm doing, and people who have followed me for years only in a marketing sense have gone out and purchased my book and talked to me about different things that they read that we never would have had those conversations before. And these are some reviews from people who are in the marketing space. That's how they knew me. It definitely got a larger audience to purchase the book, I think just because I had a platform that I was using, but at the end of the day, it was something so unrelated to my business that I had to be willing to just kind of step out and do it and see what happened. But it has been tremendous, and I say that because I want to encourage anybody who has been hesitant about saying something that they feel because they're worried it could hurt their business. That's not necessarily going to happen to you. I could share story after story, again, of people who have opened up to me because they feel comfortable to do so, knowing where I stand on certain things. So hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. I think that it is a topic that is much needed in the world today. It's one that I'm really excited I could share with you, and hopefully you found it valuable. So that's all I got.